Well, good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. I'm sure everyone had a wonderful weekend treating our loved ones, our mothers, and all those wonderful ladies, and treated them well this weekend. So happy Monday. Let me go ahead and start by starting roll call and saying good morning to my co-chair, Dr. Wong. How are you doing, Mr. Dr. Wong?
Wonderful. Thank you, Jesse.
All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll start with Brandon from Lake County Agency for Economic Prosperity. Brandon?
Present.
Dan from Rose and Shingle Creek.
Present. Good morning, Jesse.
Good morning, sir. Frank from Wyndham Destinations.
Good morning, Jesse.
Good morning, sir. Michael from John Michael Exquisite Weddings and Catering.
Good morning here.
Good morning, Michael. Phil from Orlando International Airport.
Good morning, Jesse. Thank you.
Good morning, Phil. Sandy from Truist. Sandy? All right, and our always two special guests, Mr. George Agell. George? And Mr. Adrian Jones. Adrian?
Morning, Jesse.
Good morning, sir. All right. As we move on, so let's move forward with the working group members approving of the minutes from last. So I'm sure everyone has reviewed those. And from the April 29th meeting. So do we have any changes to the minutes? Anyone? If not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Phil Brown, motion approved.
Bill, second.
Dan Giordano,
Michael,
second.
second.
All right. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, thank you. The minutes are approved. Turn it over to Dr. Wong for public comment.
Just as usual, public comment. In effort to comply with the CDC social distancing guidelines and for the safety of residents and task force members, the Economic Recovery Task Force Bring Back Tourism Working Group will conduct meetings virtually. Orange County remains committed to providing an alternative platform for residents to have the opportunity to submit their public comment. I will ask Orange County staff to read the public comments we received online and add it to the public record. Please note public comments received that do not include the required information will not be read. Comments that extend beyond the set time limit will not be read in their entirety. However, the resident's entire comment will be entered into the public record. Please note that the time allocated to each individual for public comment via online submission may be reduced from the normal 3 minutes based on the number of speakers. Can I now confirm with the Orange County staff members to see whether we have any public comments received for today?
Dr. Wong, we do not have any public comments for this specific subcommittee today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you very much. Jesse, floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Before we get to our special guest speakers, I'd like to just make a comment and congratulate everyone on this subcommittee for a great job, a job well done. The recommendations that we put forth to the task force last week were unanimously approved, and I thought it was a great win for all of us, for the community, for tourism in general, to be able to put those forth and those recommendations be approved. So thank you all for that, and I think that it was a great win for all of us. So good job, everyone. I'd like to move on and introduce our next our guest speaker. Is David Ingram on the line?
I am, Jesse. Good morning.
Good morning, David. So I'd like to introduce David Ingram, the acting general manager of the Orange County Convention Center. He's going to provide a convention center industry update, economic recovery efforts from the convention's perspective, and the GBAC or the GBAC certification exploration for the convention, and just get his thoughts on that. So David, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hope, as echoing Jesse's comments, I hope everyone had a great weekend and took care of their special loved ones for Mother's Day. Kind of touching base on a few things today. Want to talk about our business continuity for the past couple months and what we're doing to go forward. First and foremost, what we did is we tasked our sales force to make sure when they received any calls from our clients to see what we could do to reschedule the events, not just necessarily take the cancellation and move forward. So as of May 7th, we've had 21 rescheduled conventions with an overall economic impact of about $425 million, which allows us to keep the last part of this year very strong for us. Because what we ended up doing is we took our weaker months, which would basically be somewhat to July and August and end of November and December, and funnel a lot of groups into those months. So we should see a very strong end of the year as long as nothing continues to change through the CDC guidelines and any major reintroduction of the COVID-19 here in Orlando. What we also did is we also looked at it from the perspective of how do we able to accommodate the client's needs for this year, but also look at is how do we grow our business going forward. So what we did is we also looked at not only rescheduling their events, but we also looked at negotiating multi-term contracts. So what we ended up doing is we were able to get some of the events for this summer, as well as we also booked back the group again back into sometime in 2021. There's a few corporate events that we ended up ultimately having to push back out of 21, but we booked them for 24 and 26. A lot of this has a lot to do with the great partnership that we have with our friends at Visit Orlando to continue to make sure that the hotels have the availability and we're bringing back those groups. So as of right now, between June of 2020 and February of 2021, we have a total of 78 contracted events on the books for about an estimated 1 million attendees. It's about 969,000 right now. So we're close to that 1 million. The numbers, we're hoping to stay at 1 million, but as we all know with the state of the industry right now, some of the groups that are wanting to come back are expected to be a little bit smaller. So we're expected to see that number to drop a little bit, but we're holding strong with that 1 million attendance. As many of you know, our first returning event is going to be in June. It's June 12th is official move-in, but the event kicks off on the 16th. So that's AAU volleyball. Our last meeting we had with them, which was Friday, they are holding strong at about 1,000 attendees. And for social distancing purposes, 1,000 teams. For social distancing purposes, they're limiting 30 people per team. So we're expecting about 30,000 attendees for that event. Their final registration will be this Friday, the 14th. So that number could go up or could go down depending on how some people are responding and where the teams are coming from. The one thing that I'd like to point out that AAU did is actually they reached out to Orlando Health to create a network for their teams so that they can do health screenings before the teams come in, as well as their attendees, their coaches and chaperones. So the healthcare system will be able to handle anything that pops up via virtual, on-site, or actually at Dr. Phillips Hospital, should they need it. It's a very good partnership, and what we're looking for that is we're looking at that as a long-term solution. I know some of the concerns that the task force came up with is how do we build a brand for safety and concern. Partnering with our local hospitals is a great way to do that. We found that out at the beginning with HIMSS, that they were really looking for support from the health system here in Central Florida before they canceled. We were talking with our guests, and especially our larger shows, like the Design and Construction Week and McDonald's and a couple other ones. They really wanted to know what we're doing to help bridge that gap between attendees and hospitals and the healthcare system. So we're working with Visit Orlando to be able to see if we can partner long-term with Orlando Health to see if we can provide nurses and screenings and even telemedicine for the attendees so they feel safe and secure. The last thing I want to touch base with is Mr. Martinez talked about was the global GBARC, which is the Global Biorisk Advisory Council. that's a little bit tough to say on a Monday morning. Good news is we are going forward with that for accreditation through ISSA as well as the council. We're also looking at it to see if we can expand that accreditation into some of our service partners within the local community, i.e. Freeman and GES, so that we as the Orlando brand can say that we are meeting specific guidelines and not just throwing something out there as a whole for the community. But we are meeting guidelines, and we're all certified to make sure that attendees are safe and in a clean environment as much as possible. We'd also like to look at seeing how we can expand that partnership with the local hotels and the airport, so that we have the ability to have the destination as a whole certified, not just necessarily the center or a few hotels. That's all I have for right now, unless you guys have any specific questions from me. I'd be more than happy to try to answer them for you if I could.
David, Dan Giordano, I have a question. Good morning. Your plans regarding temperature checks for the associates at the convention center and guests, might you expand upon what you believe you'll be doing here in the short term?
Sure. The initial crux that we'll follow is the county directive. We have a task force that we have the reopening of the county that I'm part of right now. They're trying to find ways to do mass checks for our staff to be able to come in and do it. Right now, for the small amount of staff that we have, we just have the infrared thermometers that you can do by hand, and we'll do self. The goal for attendees is to partner with Orlando Health or Advent Health to be able to have mass screenings for them. And right now it's looking like Orlando Health is the one that's primarily wants to be able to have those contacts. And our test case will be AAU to see how that works with the temperature checks from them.
Thank you. That's a lofty endeavor. 30,000 people is a lot of people. So I wish you well, but I think it's prudent. That's going to be the new protocol, at least here in the short term.
Yes. The one concern that we have, though, is that you have the ability to mask your temperature, unfortunately, with taking over-the-counter medicines. So we're trying to have a combination of just not only just temperature checks, but also a quick questionnaire, maybe like 3 or 4 questions that says for symptom-wise, so that it's a continuity between the two of them.
Thank you very much.
Question. Mr.
Phil?
Chairman, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Phil.
David, this is Phil Brown at the Orlando International. What have your discussions been with the county attorney about what you're authorized to do in the event that somebody has a temperature over 100.4? Is your agreement with AAU allow you to turn those folks away?
Yes, the way we're looking at it in the conversations that we've had with the county is from the perspective of that's show management's ability to turn those away. And as long as there's the communication between the center and show management, they can make the decision to turn that attendee away from their perspective.
Okay, so is show management going to be on site with Orlando Health or Advent Health when they do the temperature checks?
They are. Like I said before, this is our first foray into this. So AAU has committed staff to be there to make that determination. If it goes forward, then we'll keep that as a best practice and start rolling that out to our larger clients when they come in. Where we're going to really struggle is the smaller, maybe 300 to 400 person group, and they don't have the staff to be able to man it. So unfortunately, that's a long process that we have to go figure out.
Yeah, and I guess our concern has always been at the airport, we can certainly take temperature of our employees or associates. But once you start taking the public's temperature, what authority do we have as an airport to turn them away or tell them they can't go check in on a flight? And ultimately, the airlines will have that ability, but by the time they get to the flight, they will have waltzed through a fair amount of territory.
Right. And our goal is to do the temperature checks outside the facility so show management can say, stop them before they even get into the building.
Yeah, well, that would be our ideal too, but even that, how do you stop them if you don't have clear authority? I'm assuming you're going to have contractual authority, if not some other regulatory authority for a public facility, but I'm not sure that we're going to have that luxury at this point.
Sure, completely understand.
Phil, this is George Gale. What David's sharing with you, especially regarding the AAU, is significant. Dr. Roger Gowdy at AAU is headquartered here. Most folks don't know this. I have to be on our board, as well as Thibault Van Mark, who's with Orlando Health. They've really been working hand in glove on this partnership. And to David's point, Dr. Gowdy and his entire team, who are principally located here, are all hands on deck to make sure that that process can work effectively. He's been quite a champion, I might add, to ensuring that everything could be done to manage this properly in a way that will protect his folks that he's bringing in here, as well as the team at the center and all concerned. So it's a great three-way partnership, or I should say almost four-way partnership on this. And we're excited about this opportunity that they continue to push forward on. Good news.
I mean, and actually that will have some impact on our traffic, obviously, which we're looking forward to. I just want to make sure that going forward that that's a question, because we're working with Thibault Van Mark as well. But that from our standpoint, the temperature checks, there's no federal direction guidance on that. And that's one of the challenges we're going to face. And we're trying to figure out how to implement that and be able to at least have some enforcement capability in that.
David, you could correct me a little bit. I think a significant number of these teams are likely to take ground transportation or some form of that, perhaps to come here. Would that be fair?
That is a fair assessment, George. As of right now, that's what
Right.
Dr. Gowdy and his team has passed along to us, that a lot of those teams are looking to drive in at the moment. But depending on how far they are, they may choose to fly in, which would be helpful to Phil and his team.
Absolutely.
Every little bit helps, George.
Oh, we're trying.
Hey, George. Good morning,
Yes.
Dan. I have a question
Yeah,
for you as it relates to what you believe to be the general expectation vis-a-vis temping guests. Because I just, if that becomes something that everyone's going to be doing, we got some major hotels in the city that it's, you attract thousands of people at a time.
Right.
With a lot of entrances, right? And a lot of different ways in and out. Are you temping them every time they leave the facility back in? I'd like to see if you had a sense for if there's a general consensus about that particular, the associate piece, that's a given, but the guest piece is a whole nother deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think the conference's delegates will be given guidance, a lot of guidance from the organizers as being an important quality to how they're going to process their activities when they come down with these groups. I think what we're seeing is that the delegates are not necessarily asking for or wishing for masks to be, for example, an automatic. And I see little to expect that there'll be necessarily an expectation coming in and out of hotels that have to be temperature checked at every place you go from. So I think we'll probably see less of that until they gather, like the example that David shared. Unless they gather as a large group at one given time, I think they'll be more open than that, of course. But it'll also be a understanding, as David said, if the planners, the organizers are not saying, this is how our board of directors, our event organizing committees have agreed the way we're going to do this. And they will have shared that communication extremely well with their potential delegates to be sure that there's no surprises. I think if they're not aware and just show up and all of a sudden somebody puts a thermometer or something in front of them, they might be taken by surprise. So the expectation is that all of that will be heavily communicated. And people then who choose to register or choose to come have done that willingly, recognizing that these were the principles that they put in place for that activity to take place. So that's going to be a lot dependent on the organizers, and they'll be working closely with us, with the center, and undoubtedly, as they always do, will work closely with the hotels on the level of expectation of communication to the delegates, how they've agreed that they're going to process that. And I think we know that they're very anxious to ensure attendance doesn't decline more than they might already be expecting. Some element of that, as David said, is anticipated. They won't see more than likely the historical attendance that they've had. They probably will unequivocally see a decline from that normal history until things start to normalize as we go further into the future. So they'll do everything in their power to try to avoid putting any concerns of confidence in those delegates by seeing the magnitude of what they've agreed with. Of course, as we know, these conventions typically have volunteers the volunteer leadership, as well as committees and others that are engaged in the process of developing what they do. So it's a pretty broad collaboration within their organization. And then, as we've experienced, we know very well in our convention arena that these planners are never shy to emphasize what they want to see the hotels accomplish as well. Hopefully, it'll probably be something that is not obtrusive, but yet reassures them sufficiently that they can be confident with the process they put in place.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So Dan, to your last question, we can kind of control the groups a bit by hopefully the groups dictating what they want and also volunteering or having enough manpower to do that with attendees. What do you think from the transient side? Are you seeing anything or hearing anything from the transient side from temperature check perspective? Because that to me would be absolutely no way.
And I it's interesting because I don't know about turning on or turning off. I think you either institute,
right.
You have a plan where you do everything for everyone.
Right.
I don't know about, picking and choosing that. That'll be a little bit, and I think Phil mentioned it or someone else mentioned it. Having it done before the person enters the facility is of paramount importance. You don't want to be temp checking, as they enter the ballroom or anything. It doesn't make any sense. So
right.
I think it's probably going to be,
all in one way or
I think so.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to segregate certain groups of people being checked and not checked. Don't want to go down that road. But I can tell you this, even for my small hotel, we had about 40% occupancy this past Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which was tremendous.
Wow.
So even in that small volume of people, it could have been about 100 people on property at one time. I can tell you this, entering the facility and they're all leisure. It was all leisure. That no one's wearing masks. It just a different feel. I thought, it was going to be a lot more, health conscious people and things of that nature. We all my employees have masks. We have hand sanitizing stations throughout. We're wiping down all hearts 30 minutes. I mean, we were doing our part, but it just really seemed that the transient, and they were coming because the pool was open and, whatever it was. So it's just going to be interesting to see what the actual leisure guests do or how they act or how they react. So it's going to be interesting. Any other questions for David?
Jesse, I have a question for you, actually. It's Adrian here. Am I breaking up? Is that okay?
A little static as well.
A little static. I'm just wondering if did you temperature check all the transient guests that were coming in?
Checking our actual employees, and also I had a small questionnaire, a health screening questionnaire of, I think it's like 5 questions, and we asked them that because our restaurant opened up too, so Hamilton's Kitchen was open, and so we had a lot of traffic on both ends of the hotel, but that's what we were doing. We were temperature checking our employees, health screening our employees, but other than that, from a guest perspective, they just came in. We're not doing any valet at this point. So it was all self parking. So I don't know when we'll get to that point, but yeah, that's all we were doing.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I thought that would be completely impractical, and that's something that we've been talking about within Merlin. That we don't know how we're going to physically get that many people through and do the temperature checks. It's just staff and the wearing of masks and the hygiene protocols, absolutely. And then also social distancing from some of our exhibits and what we will be doing differently, i.e. no more interactive exhibits, etc., and batch people through the attractions, etc. But, the practicalities of taking everybody's temperature coming in, particularly for transients. And I've been as alarmed as you that I went to a few restaurants last week and nobody's wearing masks going in and out, very few anyway. So I think it's going to be an education for our transients. Let's be honest about this.
Absolutely. Well, if there's no further questions for David, thank you very much for that update. If you'd like to stay on, please do, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Wong.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, David, for your update. Seems that there are some positive news over there, so we hope that business will be picked up to a certain extent in the third quarter and fourth quarter. Even though it is not to the full extent. So today we also invited second, what I call the guest speaker, Ms. Maria Chiscari, who is the president and CEO of the International Drive Chamber of Commerce, which is a very, very active, represents a lot of businesses, hospitality businesses. This group is very, very diverse. So many of them are hotels, some of them are restaurants, attractions, and event companies, and so on and so forth. So Maria, thank you for agreeing to speak into this group and share maybe some of your insights in terms of how you are thinking about the current situation and looking to the future, and how the businesses are feeling about reopening up gradually. So Maria, thank you for coming to speak with us, and then the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wong, and thank you for inviting me here today. And I also like to thank Mayor Demings and the Orange County team for all the hard work, support, and leadership they provided our community throughout this crisis. I'd also like to thank all the task force members who have been doing such a great job and so diligently getting us through this pandemic. It is with the great minds of our community leaders that we will persevere and come back stronger than ever. Having been in this position for over 30 years, I've seen a lot of crises come and go, 9/11, Pulse, the 2008 recession, and now this. One thing is for sure is that Central Florida and our tourism industry is resilient, and I'm sure we will overcome this challenge and we will be back stronger than ever. The iDrive Chamber has been serving as a means of communication, supplying information and guidance to iDrive Chamber members as we navigate through this crisis together. For the last 2 months, we've been emailing out COVID-19 updates as provided to us by Orange County, the City of Orlando, Homeland Security, and other government agencies, as well as health updates and guidance from the hospitals such as Orlando Health and Advent Health, who've also been a great source of strength and resource throughout this crisis. iDrive businesses are very appreciative of this information that keeps them up to date on all the topics of concern. The Chamber has also partnered with the Orlando Economic Development Economic Partnership to provide members with information regarding questions on loans, unemployment benefits, and to help with questions from state, federal, and local government agencies. We're all doing our part to support Visit Orlando's tremendous efforts in marketing, helping to promote their 407 restaurant campaign, as well as working with other community partners like the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association to promote restaurants in the iDrive corridor. This past weekend, the Chamber focused on promoting Mother's Day on iDrive, encouraging people to go out and celebrate at one of iDrive's fine restaurants that are now open for seating or to go. The Chamber has also set up task force committees to deal with the many questions businesses have regarding COVID-19. The committees are serving as a means of communication among various business types, such as hotels, restaurants, retail, and attractions. These committees serve as a forum for communication among the various business sectors. There are a lot of questions regarding clarification of the executive order and what it means to their business. There are some concerns from smaller attractions and hotels regarding the reopening guidelines. As you may know, along with the major theme parks, the iDrive corridor is home to over 35 smaller attractions. And many of the smaller attractions would like the ability to open now, and there's a strong concern that they are being categorized with the larger theme parks. These theme parks are a totally different business model than the smaller attractions. Our smaller attractions are a much different scale and size than theme parks. They have a smaller attendance, building size, and our capacity, and we believe they fall in line with the dynamics of retail malls and restaurants. Smaller attractions can more easily accommodate self-distancing, capacity, cleaning, and other issues related to controlling the spread of the virus. We are hoping through Orange County leadership, the smaller attractions will be categorized differently and that they will be allowed to open as soon as possible. Hotels also have questions and would like some clarifications, and some of those issues were discussed today. The hotels would like to start welcoming meetings and groups and are looking for support from Orange County on some of the clarifications to host groups, with, of course, the regulations, including social distancing and other guidelines. Our hotels would like to accommodate groups, host meetings, and with hurricane season fast approaching, we want to make sure our hotels are up and running in full capacity to welcome guests. As you know, Central Florida is a hub of many evacuation routes and becomes a refuge to outside communities. Our chamber members are also supporting Orange County Convention Center and Visit Orlando's rebooking of groups that have canceled due to coronavirus. They have done a tremendous job in a very difficult situation. As you know, the Orange County Convention Center is a strong economic engine for iDrive and our entire community. The success of Orange County Convention Center is essential to the Central Florida's economic recovery. The Chamber is also working on various iDrive promotions. The Chamber has teamed up with Travel Host Magazine on a special Welcome Back to iDrive edition that will be coming out next week. This promotion offers free full-page ads in the magazine for all iDrive businesses. We want to thank Bill Schroeder, president of Travel Host Magazine, for his generosity and support of our Chamber and the iDrive Resort area. As you may know, the iDrive Resort area is a very generous, close-knit community that supports many charitable organizations throughout Central Florida. Through the generosity of our members, like the Hilton Orlando, the Hyatt, the Wyndham, Rosen Hotels, and Center Plate, we have been able to donate food to Central Florida food banks, as well as provide shelter to needy families during this pandemic. As we move forward, the Chamber will continue to be a means of communication and guidance to businesses as they begin to open up and get back on their feet. Right now, there are approximately 50 restaurants that are open on iDrive. Many are open for seating inside the restaurant and or to go. Many retail shops are also open, including Orlando Premium Outlet malls. Many of the hotels, attractions, and even restaurants are waiting for word from Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld as to when they will open, and then they will follow suit. These businesses rely on the visitation that comes from the draw of the major theme parks to drive the market. Without those numbers, it's hard for them to see the reason to open. Theme parks are the key to our economic recovery. And just like when Disney closed, it sent a message to America that this was a serious situation. When they do open, it will send a message that it is safe to come out, travel, and enjoy life again. And when they do, the iDrive Resort area will help them do that. Thank you for inviting me today. And does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Maria. Any questions to Maria, please?
Maria, I don't really have a question, Maria. I just want to say a big thank you for you for all the communication you've been putting out. I think it's been very, very helpful, and yours has been a beacon of hope, actually, in terms of the communication that's been coming out, and I do want to publicly applaud you for that. I also want to say thank you for all the lobbying you've been doing in terms of the attractions that are there, and I do have a vested interest, obviously, for Merlin Entertainment, that we open Madame Tussauds and Sea Life and on all the attractions on iDrive as soon as possible, and we want to get those open before the theme parks. I think in theory, we know the theme parks have got a challenge, obviously, with Legoland, Disney, SeaWorld, and Universal. But let's get iDrive open for all our people, for the convention center as well, and then at least we can start somewhere. So just a big thank you from me, Maria. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, Adrian. Yeah, open up those businesses is going to be key to getting everything moving. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully that'll happen very soon.
Just to have a very, very quick comment. This has been raised by several other people, and then Maria, you just raised that question again. That is the classification of the attractions, big attractions versus medium-sized versus small attractions, right? And hopefully the small attractions, particularly those are on iDrive, and other places would not be classified as the same category, with Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld, all these huge theme parks. So I'm not sure whether somebody is looking into that, certain decisions have been made, or we are in the process of looking to that, and hopefully some decisions will be made in terms of this phased out reopening. I'm not sure whether anybody has any questions about that.
Dr. Wong, this is George. I wonder a little bit. I know that there are, I've spoken to some of the attractions that have very comprehensive protocols that they've already identified. I know that there's a recognition that the theme parks are going to open when they believe they have everything they need in place. We've seen that there's research. I think we've all understood the research that the parks are doing as we speak to help validate some of their presumptions and what they're going to roll out with, as far as how they'll handle their crowds, if you will, their audience when it's time to reopen. So everybody's speculating on when those will be. There's a lot of speculation, as there always is. I'm going to assume, in part, that as you heard Maria say, many other businesses, even along iDrive and others, are waiting because it may serve them, and from a business standpoint, not to open if they don't believe they'll have sufficient traffic. I've heard from some of the proprietors around iDrive and others saying, you know, I could open, but I just don't feel it's a purpose yet until I'm confident that I understand I'm going to have enough traffic to warrant bringing my employees back and start to make that investment. So I think there's many who may be waiting for those moments in time. I don't think I remember, and it's worth the question, that the other attractions were what the timing guidance for them could be, or whether they're just simply, in one respect, waiting a little bit to see if it warrants going through the ramp up that it will take to open. Even though they may be smaller, there's still a lot of, I'm sure, effort that goes into reopening, and they probably are also hesitating for some of the same reasons. At this point, that'd be my speculation.
Dr. Wong, just to give you a perspective, this is Adrian from Merlin again. Just to give you a perspective, we've started to open some of our businesses in Dallas. So they're kind of ahead of the curve. We've opened the Sea Life Aquarium there, but the measures that we're taking, and we are seeing very, very low footfall. But what we're doing is we're reducing the hours of operation. We are batching the people through there. And as I said before, we are restricting the amount of interactive components. In fact, we're eliminating all the interactive components. So it's all about batching people through with all our employees wearing face masks and making sure that with that limited capacity, we're doing everything we can to get open. But we're choosing to try and get open as quickly as possible, just so we can start the ball rolling. Otherwise, if we hold back, you know, we might be losing money, but it might be more about getting back open to, you know, ratchet up the capacity over time.
Any other questions to Maria?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me today, and I look forward to working with you throughout this pandemic.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Maria. You can stay on if you have time, or you're waiting. Otherwise, you know, you can be excused, of course, if you have other important things to do. So the rest of the business agenda is open discussion. I have to apologize because I have another meeting scheduled earlier, so I informed the staff members. But I believe that, you know, Jesse will take over and then have a very, very strong wrap up. One of the decisions, of course, we're going to make is whether we need to meet every day this week. Based on the most recent updates, I don't believe that will be the case. So I know that, you know, this Wednesday we'll have our major task force, the entire task force meeting this Wednesday. So I think, you know, probably that will be the meeting. We're going to be over there and to provide maybe some brief updates if required to the general task force. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, I think, you know, I feel comfortable without meeting tomorrow, but, you know, we all get together on Wednesday. So I will leave those last minutes here. So Jesse, thank you very much for taking over. so let's wrap up this meeting, today's meeting, very, very strongly.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Wong.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. So, you know, speaking with the mayor's staff, our lead, Carol, they had a meeting this morning, and they feel very confident that our recommendations with all the other subcommittee recommendations that have all been accepted is we've laid the groundwork for Mayor Demings to proceed what he needs to do in regards to phasing the phase-in program. What other further things do we need to tackle at this point before we maybe even hear on Wednesday what the mayor has to say? Is there any agenda items that you feel or action items that we still need to speak about at this point? Or any unanswered things that we had brought up prior that would be conducive to a conversation?
Yes, it's Dan. I asked Carol earlier about the breadth of the sunshine laws as it relates to what we can talk about amongst this group, or maybe even the broader group. She was going to maybe look into that for us. Okay. I know I'd like to be chatting with a bunch of people about this every day, but, you know, the sunshine keeps us from doing that.
Yeah, it's as we know, it's very limited on what we can say outside this forum here.
It doesn't actually keep you from doing it. It just means you have to post it in advance and
Yes.
allow someone else to participate. But that makes it a little different for sure.
Right.
Hi, Dan. I just saw that Georgiana is on the line, and she may be able to answer that question. Are you on the line, Georgiana?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm certainly here to answer any specific questions, or if you wanted to talk offline. The general rule is that in order for you to talk to your other members that are on the economic recovery task force, then Sunshine does apply and cover those communications. So to answer a specific question, I would have to know who you're talking to. So it would not apply to communications between folks who are not on the economic recovery task force, but it does cover the members of the full task force and those that are members of this working group but may not be members of the full recovery task force.
Georgiana, is there a time limit? Let's say, the group convenes or the general task force, our duties are done. Is there a certain limit on that, or how does that work? I think that was the question that Dan had.
Once this working group is sunsetted, then that Sunshine Law would no longer apply.
Okay, Dan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I didn't know if the task force, the broader task force is ever going to be done at some point. And then is there an end time where this will go on in perpetuity, or anybody have a sense for that?
Yeah.
At some point it will be sunsetted.
That's right. And as long as there's any task force or any meeting, including this one, should be driven by agenda. Until and when there's not an agenda that requires the group to continue convening, then I think when that no longer is the case, and the mayor stated thank you for the accomplishments of the task force, and we'll now be moving on from there, then I think that's when we would sunset at that point. It doesn't also prevent a subcommittee who feels its efforts have concluded and could also recommend their need to go ahead and adjourn due to having no further views on an agenda that they need to have going forward while the task force is still in place. So I assume that if a subcommittee does do that and does adjourn and is able to adjourn, that then those members of the subcommittee that are not in the task force can certainly visit among themselves, although they still should not be visiting with it. The two task force members should still not be visiting together. If I'm correct, I think, Georgina, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. But Georgina, if one of the members of the subgroup is still on the task force, but the subgroup is dismissed, and the ones that are no longer are not associated with the task force but were with this committee, can that task force member that's still on the recovery task force not have conversations with those individuals because they're not part of the task force?
Who's on first and what's on second? What was that?
Meaning, if for example, Jesse, or let's take Jesse, you're on the task force, economic recovery task force, but one of the members of this subcommittee who is not on the task force is no longer, this subcommittee is no longer in place. You can visit with that individual because they're not part of anything.
They're no longer the task force. Right. Gotcha. Okay. Dan?
Thank you very much, Georgina. I just don't want to misstep this not space that I'm.
The entire task force. He takes these recommendations, and he will, and his staff will create their phase-in program with our recommendations. Do we continue to meet to further outline these recommendations, or are we good? I guess is the question.
Well, we were very significant. I mean, we wanted purposely to expose, some might say, a lot of those are our key fundamental strategies, no question. Right. At this point, what we're doing is now doing a lot of the legwork that will go behind all of those strategies. We would call them just tactics at this point. So the strategies are established. Now we follow through with the exact tactics. So for example, when we think about the importance of putting our focus around digital platforms, you can imagine the diversity of options that are there, and we'll always be defining the manner in which we do it as we see the audience receptivity to it. And of course, that's a moving object, if you will, too. So just because we apply certain tactics to some of those strategies in the early stages doesn't mean it will be the same ones going forward. And of course, right. the media environment, the media universe of options, especially digital, are so ubiquitously available, so many of them that we have lots to play with. So we work closely with very adroit media buying agencies that plan with us, and that's an ongoing. So all of those are really ongoing. They'll be evolving. Of course, we continue to keep our volunteer leaders certainly abreast as we move forward, only at certain periods of time as we see shifts that might change. Now, if a strategy were to show up that is somewhat more meaningfully significant than what we've laid out, we would certainly recalibrate if that's the case. Right. I might add, fortunately, that the very current, even as we speak, the most current indicators from a research standpoint suggest that we're right on target. Those trend lines are definitely there, as we've seen at this point. So that's the good news. So we'll keep a close eye and monitoring that just to make sure that that we adopt whatever might change if it does. But as it's said often by this committee and others, there's no doubt that foundationally for our destination, what the theme parks, when they do pull the trigger and make an announcement, that's going to reinforce much of what we've been talking about. And we should see a very notable change potentially in how we can score the audience reaction to that. But we've already seen that the underlying tone is we're really waiting. I mean, the anticipation is so huge that certainly the moment they do, we'll get a very quick read if the audiences that we have been focusing on. We know it will remain the same, but could it literally expand beyond that will be interesting to watch. We know the public relations, the publicity that are very trustworthy, and the significant hotel companies, theme park companies, and others who have such incredible efforts underway that they're going to launch that should collectively give us an even higher overarching level of confidence.
Okay, great. I guess I'll pass it off to each individual task member. If there's any additional items you'd like to speak about, and if not, then we can adjourn and we can wait till Wednesday and see what the mayor has for us on Wednesday, and then we can go from there and figure out when our next meeting would be. So
Jesse, this is Adrian from Merlin again. I think I'm reading a lot, as we all do, about the different interpretations of the phases of the plan. You know, I've read an article this morning about, you know, people's misinterpreting the 25% of opening restaurants, for example. You know, does that apply to the number of tables? Does that apply to the fire code? You know, and we kind of know, because we're at the sharp end, that it's about the fire code, but it is being misinterpreted. And I think, you know, sorry to keep on about the, you know, the range of businesses like attractions and restaurants and, you know, and parks and things that we're opening. What we've just got to have crystal clear clarity on this, because we in between the phases, I think, is where the confusion's coming. You know, George is absolutely right, as in you, that once the theme parks are open, it signals we are open. We are there. We've gone through all the phases. We're clear, and crowds can get back together again under safe circumstances. But I think our role is almost, we know the branding, the marketing, but it's about helping the task force, or putting pressure on the task force to be clear about, you know, clarification in between the phases. I think that's the thing that I'm hearing and reading everywhere I go.
Gotcha. No, great point. Absolutely. Everyone's interpreting the way that fits their business right now. And there's really no enforcement, right? It's on the honor system at this point, unless we have, you know, an attendee or a community resident that calls the number and kind of turns them in. I heard one that was just a bit shocking. There was a bar in Lake Mary, a bar, not a restaurant, a bar who was open and literally had every seat and around the bar, which is a giant U-shaped, what was told to me, a U-shaped type bar that held about 25 seats, and every seat was full, and the restaurant and the bar itself. I don't know how that got that got past everybody, but again, it's just the enforcement's going to be tough, unfortunately. But to your point, yes, we need to be specific. We need some specific guidelines in between these phases of what this means. What does 25% mean? We kind of know what it is, but how is everyone else interpreting it?
Jess, it's Dan. Has there been any update about Mayor Deming's permitting the use of parking lots and such, much like they did in Winter Park or downtown Orlando?
You know, that's a good question. I did hear some, like Winter Park did theirs, right? The city of Winter Park allowed this past weekend to close off Park Avenue and allow the restaurants to extend their businesses into the streets, which was great for the city. I know that they're not going to do that every weekend. It's just not feasible to do that. But I don't know, George, have you heard anything extra on that part?
Well, last I recall, the mayor tried to clarify it. I believe he mentioned it in the last press conference. He was relating the importance of continuing to work within code to continue to make sure that you didn't just go off and there was codes for if you put a tent up, it told you what you had to do if it was a tent. It really seemed like there was quite an outline. If you want to do extend and go outside, you can't, right of ways, you can't block. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes in with going like into your parking lot otherwise. So I think the county has come forward fairly clear on if you want to do this, what it entails on that aspect.
Yes, George, thank you so much for that. This is Carol with the Orange County staff. Yes, we do have a sort of robust kind of guidelines as to signage and tents and, sidewalk information for outside seating. So I'm happy to send that to the group, but it is on our website, and the group here, the county staff did a wonderful job putting that together. So I'm happy to forward that, or you can go onto our website and get that information.
Awesome. Thank you, Carol. Any other questions?
Carol, this is Frank Geckel with Wyndham. Question on that. Is parking guidelines or parking codes suspended while restaurants are expanding outdoor seating?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure. City
Frank,
staff?
Can you repeat the question, and then that way we'll have that for the record and get that answer?
With restaurants expanding their outdoor seating into their parking area, is parking code and parking requirements, are they suspended?
Okay, I'm not sure the answer to that, but we'll find out from our team here, and we can get that out to you. And to the general task force or the subcommittee as well.
Thank you, Carol. Any other questions? If not, let's adjourn and wait till Wednesday to see what type of direction we get from the mayor on the full task force. So Carol will go ahead and cancel tomorrow's meeting, if you could, please. And then we'll all see each other on Wednesday. No other questions? Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.